What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Fantasy Mafia podcast. I'm your host, Action Boss, here with my co-host Apex. Today, we are doing our Week 3 injury report as well as a brief preview for each game. Um, we're not going to get too in depth with the preview for tomorrow, which is Sunday game day. We do run a live show for our start sit, and that's where we'll be able to get more in depth with the players. But today is just more of just kind of letting you know who's in, who's out, and then where we stand on a few of the players for each matchup. So starting with the 1 o'clock games, 1 p.m. Eastern. Right now, the first game that they got listed here is the Chicago Bears at the Atlanta Falcons. No big injury news for the Bears. All of their fantasy relevance players did participate full in practice, so this is as of yesterday. That includes Cole Kmet, if he is actually fantasy relevant as of right now, not yet. Allen Robinson, Jimmy Graham, Anthony Miller. So they were all full participants. It looks like on the offensive side of the ball, the Bears are going in fully healthy. If you are in an IDP league, Khalil Mack was limited. He is questionable. I do expect him to play. On Atlanta's side, Todd Gurley did not practice. I don't know if it was more of a maintenance day or not. I don't know if you know anything more on that, Apex. I'll let you get to him. Julio Jones did not practice. That's the biggest one, probably in this entire game. He is questionable. It might even go up to game time decision. It is an earlier game, so definitely something that you can monitor. But definitely keep your eyes on that. Calvin Ridley is a big play here. Russell Gage, if he's available, go pick him up. If not, you might have to find a replacement. Doesn't necessarily have to be from this game, but Julio Jones is one of the bigger ones. And then I believe that is it from the Atlanta side. And then we'll get you over to Apex. So we'll go over the lines and we'll start talking about some plays for tomorrow for this game.
All right, the Falcons are favored in this game by 3.5 points, and the over/under is 47, so a little bit expected to be higher scoring in this one. And you covered the injuries pretty well. Julio is probably going to be a game-time decision. If he's out there, you're obviously playing in your lineup, as well as Calvin Ridley. He's taken advantage of some really good matchups in the first 2 weeks and has some really nice games. So I expect that to continue, especially if Julio is out. Really is a great play. He's a great DFS play. He's not super expensive, but he's definitely one to put in your lineup regardless if Julio is in or out, and then maybe just get a little bit more of a bump if he is out.
All right, and then as far as like the guys that you're throwing into your lineup, Matt Ryan I think is a definite. Mitch Trubisky, and I actually am on the fence about him because I have Deshaun Watson going up against Pittsburgh. I actually picked up Trubisky. I'm probably going to make a late decision tomorrow before the games start, but right now I'm leaning more towards Mitch Trubisky, so he might be a good play to play over some people. I know a lot of people got burned on Thursday night with Gardner Minshew going into that game thinking it's a very favorable game for Gardner, and that ended up not working out, and they could be thinking the same about Mitch Trubisky. But I might be going Mitch over Watson tomorrow. So from the quarterbacks, we actually have Mitch as a QB2. As a consensus, he's our QB 17. And Matt Ryan as QB 10, so puts him into the QB 1 range. Any thoughts on the quarterbacks for tomorrow?
I like Mitch. I think this is a really good matchup for him. And he's not a guy that like you drafted or anything like that expecting to play him every week. But, the Matt Ryan, he had a good game against Seattle in the first week, and then he had a good game against the Cowboys. So, it kind of, bodes well. In the opposite side, Wilson and Dak both had good games against the Falcons defense. So this game could turn into a potential shootout. The Falcons defense not, tops in the league. They're probably one of the bottom half ones, at least what they've shown so far. So, Mitchell Trubisky is definitely a decent play this week. You're probably rolling him out there in the super flex. Watson versus Trubisky, it's a tough decision there. I think they both have, Mitch has the better matchup. I think Watson has the ability to play in a great game, to produce one for you, but the schedule for the Texans kind of opened up a little tough for him. So you might be making the pivot to Trubisky if you have a couple options like that you're on the fence about.
It's definitely going to be tough. The next position group we got is running backs. As we mentioned, Todd Gurley did not participate. I actually didn't get a notice for that or anything, so I don't know how severe that is. But even if Todd Gurley plays, I think the only running back that I might be playing from this game is probably David Montgomery. I do have him as a RB2 or even flex play in a couple leagues. I did like his potential going into the year. I got him in a league where I have McCaffrey, and I didn't end up getting Mike Davis, so I'm kind of forced to play him in that league, and I'm actually comfortable with it this week. So Montgomery is a good play for me. Cohen in like a deeper flex league, I'm not against it. I'm not going out and actively picking them up, but I'm not against that. Atlanta, I'm really not touching any of their running backs. Any other thoughts on their running backs?
Not too much. I was hoping to see a little bit more consistency from Gurley. He seems to be getting the snap percentages and like his touches, but he hasn't thus far seemed very effective with them. So this is a decent matchup for him to really break out, maybe get a touchdown or two, and really have a good fantasy day for you.
All right, then wide receivers, that's kind of the position that we touched on a little bit already. Allen Robinson, I think, is a start in your lineup, especially going against the Atlanta defense on the Atlanta side. If Julio plays, I don't think he's going to be more of a decoy, kind of like what Mike Evans was in Week 1 for the Bucks. I think that if he plays, he's going to be out there and he's going to be good to go. If not, Calvin Ridley, or even if Julio plays, Calvin Ridley is a good play as well. But if not, Calvin Ridley just boosts up. Russell Gage, I think, is a solid flex play for you. And then we'll just dip into the tight ends too. Hayden Hurst, I think, is another guy that could get a boost with Julio out, but I'd still be comfortable as like a low end tight end 1, high end tight end 2 from Hayden Hurst. And on the Chicago side, Jimmy Graham, he's been getting some looks, especially in the red zone. He could be a sneaky, more of a DFS play this week. I probably wouldn't trust him in a full season, but DFS, maybe get one into the end zone. And while other people are paying up for tight ends, Jimmy Graham could be on the cheap for you.
Yeah, for sure. You touched on him with the DFS there. He's probably going to be one of the cheaper options. Hasn't really climbed in prices too much. Season-long leagues, you probably didn't draft Jimmy Graham or maybe picked him up, and you probably have some other, better options. So until he becomes, a more consistent force in the offense and getting the high targets that some of the other top tight end options are getting, probably not putting him in your league on a weekly basis until that happens. But, for sure, those are the kind of players you're looking in DFS, those low-owned guys, cheaper guys that can maybe cash in with a touchdown for you.
All right, and then the next game we got up here is the Los Angeles Rams at the Buffalo Bills. It's a 1 o'clock start. On the Rams side, we already knew about this one. Cam Akers is out. Malcolm Brown, he's kind of been banged up all week, but he was a full participant, so he should be in there. Him and Darrell Henderson will be splitting time. And then on the Buffalo Bills side, we already knew about Dawson Knox. He is out. We already knew about Zach Moss. He is out. The other ones, John Brown was a little banged up. He was a full participant. Cole Beasley, I didn't even recognize that he was on the injury report at all, but he was a full participant, so he should be good to go. So it looks like the Bills will have their whole plethora of wide receiving options. Their tight end is out, but they got another guy that could step up. Other than that, no other big news here. It does look like both of their running backs that missed last week, where Mike Gesicki was able to exploit them, will be back this week. So maybe makes Higbee a little less of an option, but still an option. I mean, I'm not going against Tyler Higbee just because Tremaine Edmonds is back, but he doesn't scare me as much as what he did with the injury news. But getting into we'll start with the quarterbacks here. Jared Goff versus Josh Allen. I mean, Josh Allen is coming in as the number 2, number 3 quarterback on the year, but this is going to be his toughest test yet. Got the big defensive tackle Aaron Donald in there. They got a solid secondary. But with the running back out, Zach Moss out, a lot of the work is going to go to Devin Singletary. I don't think that messes up Josh Allen at all. Maybe he doesn't throw for 350, 400 yards, but I still think they're going to be able to throw the ball. I do like him. I think I had him at quarterback 7, and overall we had him at quarterback 6. So he's actually a little higher than what I had him in my rankings. So he's the quarterback 1 for us, and then Jared Goff is a quarterback 2 for us at 21 overall. I think that, I mean, obviously he's got Higbee, he's got Cup, he's got Woods. I'm a little worried about Woods with Trey White probably being on him, but both quarterbacks I think are startable. One more in a super flex league, and one you're not taking out of your lineup.
Yeah, you said it pretty well. Josh Allen for me, he's really rising up there. He's becoming one of the top options, and I have a couple different leagues that I have some really tough starts with Josh Allen and Cam Newton, guys like that both give you the rushing ability and have just been really good passing the ball thus far. So Josh Allen can be counted on. This is a little bit of a tougher matchup compared to his first 2 weeks, but I expect him to still go out there and produce a good fantasy day for you.
All right, and the running back side touched on it a little bit with the Rams. Akers is out. Looks like it's going to be a Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson show for the Rams. On the Bills side, Devin Singletary, and then I'm not sure if they're going to call up TJ, or not call up, but like activate TJ Yeldon or not. I would assume that they're activating him, but for the most part, it should just be Devin Singletary. We already had him on the borderline of RB2, RB3. He does get a little bit of a boost with this. We still got to see how he could handle the full load, but I'd put him into an RB2 flex. As far as the running backs go, if you had to choose just one of them to play, say just for a flex, who would it be?
I'd probably go with Singletary just because of the opportunity there. I still don't know what the Rams are going to do. I said it earlier in like one of our week 1 shows that I really like this Ram system for the running back if they had a consistent one, like say a Todd Gurley or something like that. But for Malcolm Brown and Henderson, they're probably going to be splitting time. I don't really have the know. Like I'm not in the know about who is going to get all the touches and get the goal line carries. I'd figure the goal line is probably going to be Malcolm Brown. Henderson might be used a little bit more in the passing game, but they kind of flipped the script in week 2 compared to what they did in week 1 for the Rams' offensive rushing attack. So I'd probably stick with Devin Singletary for this game. He was getting a good amount of carries and receptions in the first 2 weeks. And now with Zach Moss out, I just feel like he gets a little bit of that opportunity bump, and he could probably produce a little bit more of a safer game compared to the other two.
All right, and then going into the wide receivers, as we mentioned, you got Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp on the Rams side. You got Stephon Diggs, John Brown, Cole Beasley on the Bills side. A couple of elite cornerbacks in this game. So while all the names might be sexy and comfortable to play, you might get a little surprise when Robert Woods and or Stephon Diggs don't have quite the game that you're kind of hoping from them, because Jalen Ramsey and Trey White are going up against them. But I'm not taking them out of my lineup for that reason. I mean, I'm a firm believer in you start your studs, and so far those guys have been studs. I'm not putting high hopes on either of them to really have the kind of games that they've had in week 1 and week 2, but I am still comfortable playing them. Cooper Kupp, I think, gets a little bit of a boost because of that. I think this is going to be the game where he has a better, like closer to what he had last year kind of game. He hasn't really stepped up yet this year. I think he has a huge game. I think John Brown on the opposite side could have a huge game for Buffalo because Diggs might be shadowed by Jalen Ramsey. Cole Beasley, I mean, he's not really rostered in a lot of leagues, and I'm not saying to go out and grab him. He could be like if you have like a 3 or 4 flex league, maybe down there, but it's one of those things where I'm not really I'm not anticipating him to do too much. I think John Brown and Cooper Kupp are the biggest benefactors of this, and they could both have big games.
Yeah, a little bit of a tougher defenses on both sides compared to what these two teams faced in the first 2 weeks. But Robert Woods is probably my safest pick in this game for the Rams, at least. He gets involved all around. He only had 2 receptions last week, but they got him involved in the rushing game and got him a couple carries on some jet sweep plays, and he even got into the end zone. So he's a pretty consistent player. I do like Cole Beasley. I feel like with those tougher defenses, if the game is projected to be a close back and forth game, I feel like he can work underneath a little bit, maybe get a little bit more receptions and kind of have a little bit of a safe game, maybe 6 or 7 receptions or so, working out of the slot. So possibly a DFS play for him. Like you said, unless you're in like a deeper league, I don't think I'd be rolling him out there. Stephon Diggs, I feel like at this point you have to play him over with his good start to the year. He had about 150 yards and a touchdown last week, so you got to put that out in your lineup in hopes that he can produce another game like that in this matchup. And another one, Cooper Kupp, also safe. I feel like those are the two top Rams receivers, Woods and Kupp, that are just plugging into your lineup, and they're going to get you about 7 or 8 receptions and a chance for touchdowns. So they're pretty safe plays.
And then the tight end position, Higbee really would be the only one from this game that I'm playing. The middle of the field was exposed last week against the Bills with Mike Gesicki. But again, that was with the linebackers out. But Higbee is still coming off a 3-touchdown game. Jared Goff does like to go his way. So even if those guys are back, Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano, which they both are questionable at the moment, I still have trust in Tyler Higbee. I still think Goff is going to look his way, as we mentioned. And Josh Allen really doesn't feed the tight end position that much, but Dawson Knox is out. The next guy up would be Tyler Kroft. He could be left under waivers. I'm not really trusting him, or there's a lot of other tight ends that I'd throw in over my lineup over him.
Yeah, it's Higbee is a weird one. I believe I saw somewhere earlier in the week that he didn't really run a lot of routes, but he had the 5 catches and the 3 touchdowns. So that really puts a good fantasy day on paper. But it's just you got to hope that he gets targeted when he runs those routes, because the usual plan is for Everett to kind of be the more pass catching guy, but Goff has definitely developed a connection with Higbee, so he's a safe option. If he's going to be out there on the field, running a couple routes, he's safer. Goff definitely targets him, so he's a safe play for you. And I probably wouldn't be playing any tight end from the Bills side.
All right, our next game up is the Washington football team at the Cleveland Browns. Washington, from a fantasy standpoint, looks to be going in completely healthy. No major news there. Cleveland, same thing, completely healthy. The only name that was on the list was Jarvis Landry, but he was a full participant, so he should be good to go. So no fantasy impact from injuries. We should be getting a good game. There are some defensive players and some offensive line guys that are on the list. So not to say that both teams are fully healthy, but they are, from a fantasy standpoint, your guys should be out there. The quarterback matchup, you got Dwayne Haskins for the football team up against Baker Mayfield. Mayfield coming off that big game against Cincinnati last Thursday night. We have him at QB 25 as a consensus, so right outside the QB 2 range. But it's something that if you wanted to play him over, a Daniel Jones, or because he's going against San Francisco, or a Justin Herbert, because he's a rookie, even though he's got a good matchup, he could easily slot into that QB 2 range if you felt the need to play Mayfield over one of those younger guys. And then the Washington football team has Dwayne Haskins, and he's a little bit lower at QB 28 for us. Cleveland Browns defense, they are pretty good. I think that there's going to be Terry McLaurin is going to do his thing. Logan Thomas might get some catches, but really there's not much from this Washington football team that really scares me enough or that really is putting me in a position to want to play Dwayne Haskins. So between those two, what do you think about them?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think I'm playing Haskins either. I'm not the biggest Haskins fan out there, and until he gets a little bit more consistent and he makes better decisions with the ball, I just don't feel like you can trust him in your fantasy lineup. Baker Mayfield, he had about 220 yards and 2 touchdowns and a pick in the Thursday night game against the Bengals. But he only threw the ball about 23 times. So they definitely controlled the game there, and then relied a lot on Chubb and Hunt in the rushing attack. So if that game kind of turns into if this game kind of turns into the same script as that game, I don't think Baker's going to give you a great fantasy day. But if he's solid and consistent, around that range, about the 250 mark and 2 touchdowns is kind of what you can expect if the Browns are going to kind of cruise to a little bit of a victory here. But you just hope that he's going to be reliable for you, not going to turn the ball over a lot and really hurt you that way. But I think Mayfield's a safer start. There's probably some other guys that have a little bit more upside than he does, but if you're looking for just going for a safe guy, Baker Mayfield can produce a nice game. A little bit of a tougher defense with Washington there compared to his last game against Cincinnati. So we'll have to see if he can protect the ball, not turn it over, and limit the mistakes. I think he can be a solid fantasy play.
All right, and then the running back position, you got Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Antonio Gibson. I think they're all decent plays. We actually have all three of them in the RB2 range. Nick Chubb right on that borderline at RB13, so he could be interchanged with somebody right ahead of him, a Joe Mixon, Chris Carson. But all three of them, I think, are playable. Might be throwing like Antonio Gibson into your flex. Hunt, I mean, we've already seen that those two can coexist between Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. So if I have them, I didn't really attack Hunt that much this offseason and in my draft, so I don't have too many shares of him. But the one or two leagues that I do have him, I'm fine playing him. Nick Chubb was an earlier round pick. I haven't really been turned off by him yet, so I'm still playing him. Gibson for me is really the question mark. I mean, I like to see him get more work, and I think he is getting more work. And as the season goes on, and Dwayne Haskins gets more comfortable and realizes that he's only got Terry, Logan, and Gibson to throw to, then he's gonna get more into the action. But if I'm in a desperate move where I lost like a Barkley or I lost Christian McCaffrey and I have Gibson, I'd throw him in there as a flex play.
Yeah, it's really intriguing what's going on in the Cleveland backfield. I feel like every time I watch the Browns play, Hunt just looks like the better player. He's more efficient. He had about 8.5 yards per carry in the Cincinnati game last week, and as well as he gets the receiving work. So, I think both of them can definitely coexist. That you can definitely go ahead and start both. Maybe even some scenario you have them both on the same team. You can definitely be fine with that because they both produce good fantasy numbers, and I think if Hunt ever takes over or something happens to Chubb, I think Hunt can really be a top 5 option on a weekly basis, and same thing for the other way. If something happens to Hunt, I feel like Chubb's usage is really safe. I mean, he had 120 yards and 2 touchdowns in kind of like the put away role last week as they were just kind of grinding the clock. That's what they wanted to do, but they were just so efficient that they just kept going down and scoring touchdowns right away. So to reiterate, both of them are good, solid plays. I like both of them. As far as Gibson goes, I feel like his opportunity may be hindered a little bit if the Washington football team has to come back in this game. They may turn away from the run, but he should be able to provide you a couple of receptions, a little bit of work in the passing game. So he seems, a solid play if you have, some lesser options due to some injuries this week.
All right. From the wide receiver side, you got, as we mentioned, Terry McLaurin. I think he's a good play. We have him in the wide receiver 1 range, right at wide receiver 12 for us. Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr., I think that you could play both of them. If you drafted Odell, you might have drafted him as a wide receiver 2 and then Jarvis Landry a little bit later, if you got him on the same team, obviously. But I'd be fine playing. If I had him on the same team, I'd only want to play one. I don't think I want to go in there playing both. I'd probably be looking more towards Odell coming off that big game. But if I had them on separate teams, I'm fine playing. I'm fine playing both. Landry as a flex, Odell as a wide receiver too. Outside of those two, really nothing. And since it is short, we'll get into the tight ends as well. Logan Thomas, I think, is a solid play. He was a last week waiver wire pickup that is getting some targets out there in Washington. He's like I said, not many targets for Dwayne Haskins to throw to, so Logan Thomas happens to be one of them. And then in Cleveland, they obviously lost Njoku in week one. Austin Hooper is their $10 million man that they got, and we're still waiting for a big game from him. But he's kind of on the borderline of if I want to start him and if I don't. I mean, like I said, we're only into week 3. There's no bye weeks yet. Not a lot of tight end injuries. And, I mean, if you drafted George Kittle, you probably didn't draft Austin Hooper as well. So it's not like you would have had them both. But if you're looking at all the tight ends that are available to you, I mean, Austin Hooper might be on the outside looking in, but if you wanna get gutsy and think, okay, I mean, they're paying this guy, he's got to have a big game or two coming up soon. Throw him into your lineup and hope it's then. I mean, he could even be a DFS play for you too.
Yeah, I'll start at the top here with Beckham. He got a solid amount of targets in the first game against the Ravens, but he didn't really connect on a lot of them. Only 3 receptions. The second one, a little bit less targets. He only got 6 targets, but he did get 4 receptions with that long touchdown there. So that's kind of what you're hoping for, that Odell's able to produce a touchdown for you. Otherwise, it's just kind of a lot of the same as last year until they can really get going. And I don't know if they will get it going on a consistent basis with how good their running game is. For Landry, I don't think this is a really good game script for him. The line is the Browns are favored by 7 in this one, so it's kind of follows into the script of they're going to get ahead early and then run Chubb and Hunt to kind of close the game out. So maybe not a lot of passing volume, but who knows? Washington came out and surprised the Eagles right away in week 1, so they could have to the script be turned and they have to throw a little bit more. But as far as the betting lines go, I think the little bit of the favored result is that this is going to turn into another Chubb and Hunt game. So it's going to be a little bit tougher for Landry or Beckham to really produce a high-end fantasy day. But hopefully their receptions and maybe a touchdown can give you a safe performance.
All right. Our next game we got is the Las Vegas Raiders, who are 2-0, are traveling to New England to take on the Patriots. Some big injury news from this game. We have Josh Jacobs, who was kind of questionable all week. He did finally return to practice yesterday. He was limited, so his participation for tomorrow's game is questionable. Brian Edwards was limited in practice. He doesn't have a tag right now, though, so not sure if he's going to be in or out. Hunter Renfrow, full participant. Darren Waller, limited participant. He is questionable. So the two biggest guys, the guys that were definitely 100% drafted in every, if not most league, Darren Waller and Josh Jacobs are both questionable. So those are two guys to look out for. On the Patriots side, James White did not participate. He is out. It's not an injury-related injury. I'm sure we all know by now what happened with him. N'Keal Harry was limited. Julian Edelman was limited. They are both questionable. So a few fantasy relevant players here that are questionable. I believe they're all going to play. But it is definitely something to monitor. Definitely got to have some backups. It is a 1:00 game. But yeah, we'll start at the top with Derek Carr and Tom Brady. Derek Carr probably avoiding this week. I mean, New England's defense, even though it lost a lot of pieces in the offseason, they still are. They're still pretty solid. They still have all their defensive backs at least. So I mean, Derek Carr, he kind of worries me going up against that defense. And then Tom Brady, and especially if his two wide receivers are playing, I think he is a comfortable play. I would put him in as more of a quarterback two, but definitely somebody in like a super flex, or if you do have like a Deshaun Watson or somebody against a tough matchup, you might want to consider looking at Brady, picking him up off the waiver wire, and throwing him out there if you're not comfortable with a tougher matchup out there.
Yeah, well, Brady's been on this team that's for so long that you just automatically think that he's still there. But Cam Newton is actually the quarterback of the
Oh my
Patriots.
God, yeah, you're right.
I just let you roll with it, man, because you had some good points. You were thinking about the Bucks matchup a little bit later, but Cam Newton should be a good play. I mean, he's been a really good fantasy play for the first 2 weeks, especially against a Seattle defense is a little bit tougher. So I think the Raiders coming in. Getting this matchup, I think we might see him a little bit more on the ground. Scripted wise, he had a lot of zone read plays and some RPOs in the first matchup against the Dolphins. So we might see a little bit more of that. As far as Carr goes, I was kind of sitting there watching the Monday night game and just thinking that this offense is really perfect for Derek Carr. Just the kind of weapons that he has. He's got the big, reliable tight end. He's got the pass-catching running back. Now that Gruden's actually used him in the passing game, Jacobs is turning into a really good pass-catching running back, and he's got the speedster Ruggs, as well as the other rookie Bryan Edwards, who seems to have a little bit more of a typical wide receiver frame that can really create some mismatches, as well as the underneath slot guy with Hunter Renfrow. Now Ruggs isn't going to play in this game, so that might be a little bit of a hindrance for him. But I think that these guys aren't superstars, maybe except for Waller's a little bit upper tier, but he's really making this team work, and the system is really working for Derek Carr. So who knows if he'll be able to be a really reliable fantasy play this week. But I think moving forward, Derek Carr is in a really good position to lead this team and surprise a couple of other teams like they did on Monday with the Saints.
All right, so yeah, I do apologize about that. Cam Newton is the quarterback for the Patriots now. We actually have him as quarterback 7, so he is a play for me. Derek Carr was one of the guys that was right above Baker Mayfield, actually one spot above Baker Mayfield at quarterback 24. But he's one of those guys where if you like Mayfield's matchup better, then throw Mayfield in there. Any of these guys within like one or two spots of each other, if you're looking at our rankings, I mean, we're not going to be mad at you for going with a guy that might be 2 spots lower. They're all, if we were to tier it out, that would be 1 tier. So definitely could go that way. From the running back side, Josh Jacobs is probably the only one in this entire game that I'm comfortable playing. We've seen a little bit of Sony Michel. We've seen a little bit of Rex Burkhead. We're still waiting on Damian Harris to come back, and that should be what, next week? This is week 3 of the IR, so he should be back next week, hopefully. But Josh Jacobs, I mean, if he's out there, you're playing him. Obviously, if they hold him out, you're not, and I'm probably not picking up any of his backups and playing him. I'm probably looking at a different direction. So, but Josh Jacobs is really pretty much it for me on the running back side.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You touched on it earlier. James White's not going to be in this contest for the second straight week due to some personal reasons, but Cam is just, he kind of doubles as their running back, and we've kind of talked about that a little bit with the way that Newton plays and the way that Lamar Jackson plays, as well as Josh Allen. That's kind of an extra running back there that you have to account for. So that really takes the running backs that they have, it kind of devalues them a little bit. So definitely near the goal line, Cam's getting the first look. So that can be really a hindrance to Michelle owners if you're still kind of believing in him. So I wouldn't be playing any running backs in this game besides Jacobs if he's out there. He's obviously one of the top backs in the league at this point.
And you already touched on the Vegas wide receivers. The Patriots wide receivers, like I said, both of them are on the injury report as limited, but I am comfortable playing either one of them. Edelman coming off that big game, N'Keal Harry just slowly getting more targets each week. I think that he's eventually going to turn it around and break out this year. So either one of them, I'm fine. Nikhil Harry in a flex, Edelman in a wide receiver 2. Not really comfortable playing too many wide receivers from the Raiders, but I am, and I'm really hoping that he plays Darren Waller, the tight end. I definitely need him in one of my leagues. I lost McCaffrey in that same league, so I need all the help that I could get. Need Waller out there, and that's the only tight end that I'd be playing from this game. So not a lot of aside from Cam Newton and the couple wide receivers for the Patriots, and then Josh Jacobs and Darren Waller. There's really just a handful of fantasy players in this game. I think it could be a good game, but you're just not hoping for a lot of fantasy points from this game. I really hope Waller's out there, need him to be out there. If not, definitely got to look in a different direction. I do have backups on my bench, but yeah, that's it for me from this game.
Yeah, kind of a sleeper guy to keep your eye on is Damiere Byrd in this game. He was getting a good amount of targets, and he was out there week 1, didn't really get a lot, but week 2 against the Seahawks, he was slowly producing a really good fantasy day. So just kind of a guy to keep your mind, keep your eye on, keep in the back of your mind. If you're in like a deeper league, maybe throw him onto your bench, and he could be productive in some matchups down the road. But I think you said it good. Edelman had a really good day against the Seahawks. I think he had a career high in yards, and so I don't know if that's a little bit of things to come. If that's how they want to exploit defenses with their passing game. But Cam really was able to spread it around, and like I said, Edelman had the great game, and Harry was up there, and Damiere Byrd, so he kind of supported 3 solid options for the week. Not that you were starting the latter 2, but it's definitely, it bodes well. It kind of, we saw the really conservative run Cam a lot, a lot of those kind of play calls, and then they really opened it up in week 2. So 2 different game scripts we saw that already we have the kind of image that they can attack you in a lot of different ways. So it'll be interesting to see how they do that moving forward, and especially for this game. I would tend to think that it'd be a little bit more of a Cam rushing game, as well as Edelman getting his looks compared to the other 2. But like I said, they can really open it up and attack in different ways here.
All right, our next matchup that we got here is the Bengals going up against the Eagles. For the most part, your fantasy relevant players from the Bengals are going in there fully healthy. They do look like they are. They might be missing a couple interior defensive linemen. On the Eagles side, it's pretty much the same news all year long. Alshon Jeffrey is out. Jalen Reagor, the rookie, looks like he's going to be out. Well, he definitely is out. He hasn't really done much in the for them yet so far. The Eagles do look like they will be with their with 3 of their biggest offensive linemen, Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, and Jason Peters. And with the defensive linemen being out or questionable for the Bengals, this could be a huge game for Miles Sanders. I think it's going to be a big Miles Sanders day. I think Miles Sanders could potentially even finish as RB1 on the week. Deshaun Jackson was a full participant, so that's good news for Carson Wentz. As far as the quarterbacks go here, you got Joe Burrow going up against Carson Wentz. We have them both in the quarterback 2 range. I think Wentz was quarterback 16 for us. Burrow was quarterback 19. So good super flex plays, good 2 quarterback plays. I'm probably not starting them over any of our top 12 quarterbacks, and that includes guys like Ryan Tannehill and Ben Roethlisberger that are down at 11 and 12. So I'm probably keeping them in the super flex range. I'm not going to be fancy and throw them in there and start them over one of our starters, but definitely a situation where you could get some good points from your super flex with either one of these guys.
Yeah, I actually have both of them on one of my dynasty teams, so I kind of have to hope that this game really turns into a shootout, and that's the line for it's 47.5 points, so it's kind of a little bit expected to be a little bit more high scoring. So hopefully both quarterbacks can produce. I feel like even without Reagor, I think Wentz can produce a good day as long as he takes care of the football, doesn't turn it over. We saw a lot of that in week 1, and it really hurt his fantasy performance. And as far as Burrow, I think he had like 60 pass attempts last week and kind of like the catch up mode. So hopefully. That he can get a little bit more efficient, so he's not throwing the ball 60 times. But it seemed to me like he was throwing a lot of passes underneath, so you getting maybe like 4 or 5 yards a throw, and so I need to see him push the ball down the field a little bit more. AJ Green was not very much involved. He had a few targets. He didn't produce a very good fantasy day last week. So, for Burrow to have a good game, he's got to push the ball down the field. Obviously, get the ball into the end zone a little bit. Rely on some of those, top options like Green and Boyd and maybe the deep thread. Maybe connect on one with Ross there. And for Wentz, he's got the tight ends. He's got Ertz and Goddard as like his top options. And hopefully D-Jack is a really good play in this one. He had a little bit more of a safe game last week, but hopefully you're getting the boom out of him this week, especially without Jalen Reagor there. So I think both quarterbacks can play a good game for you. So they just gotta execute and not turn the ball over.
All right, as far as running backs go, not really much to say about them. Both the running backs in this game, Miles Sanders and Joe Mixon, we have them in the RB1 range. If I have them, I'm playing them. There's really no question about it. Joe Mixon has kind of gotten off to a slow start, but he's the work is there, the volume is there. He just has to get it going. The offensive line, they're starting to come together a little bit. They're not really out with injuries or anything like that, so it's just more of them just kind of gelling together. As the season goes on, it's going to happen. He looks pretty healthy, so I'm playing both. There's really no question about either of them. I'm just going to jump right into the wide receivers and then have you give your opinion on the running backs if you want, just so kind of just pushing time a little bit. But the wide receivers, AJ Green, he's coming off of 13 targets, but really didn't do much with those targets. Tyler Boyd seems to be the safer play. So if you have both of them, probably like if you had to choose between both of them, I'd probably lean Tyler Boyd's way. If you have them on separate leagues, I might throw Green into the flex, Boyd into the wide receiver too, and I'd be happy with that. On the Philadelphia side, really not. I'm not a huge Deshaun Jackson truther. I think he's kind of fallen off a little bit since his return to Philly. He had that one big game last year, week 1. We expected the huge game week 1 this year. Didn't happen for us. I kind of avoided him in a lot of my drafts. I think I might have picked him up in one league and played him in week 1. Kind of got burned by it. He really is their only wide receiving option. They still have their tight ends, but even then, I'm probably staying away. So I'd start both running backs. I would start both wide receivers for the Bengals. Probably not Deshaun Jackson for the Eagles for me.
Yeah, I think I echo your thoughts. I think the running backs are probably the top options in this game for either offense. The targets for Green, they're very encouraging that he's able to get 13 targets, and he better on 61 throws for Burrow, but Green's got to do more with them. He's got to be able to catch them, produce a touchdown or something like that. But that should be his number one option, and it clearly is with the targets. But Green just has to cash in on them. And, I'm really in a tough spot whether to start him or Malcolm Brown in my flex in one league. So I've kind of gone back and forth. I feel like, A.J. Green's going to be a good play this year. They just have to wait for this connection to click. And, this is only going to be their third game. If we were in preseason, maybe we start to see a little bit more of the connection in this game. So, I expect, what was it, 3 catches on 13 targets or something like that. Yeah. That looks to me like a preseason number. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for this game. He's still a rookie, kind of getting acclimated to the speed and whatnot. And as far as Green coming back from the injury, he's still kind of getting his flow too. So, I'm still in on Burrow and Green, and I'm hoping they can produce a good game this week. Boyd is also a safe play, as you mentioned. He's one to get a little bit more receptions for about 60 yards or so, maybe 6 for 60 or something like that. Maybe like kind of like Edelman type numbers a little bit. As far as the Eagles, I already mentioned you're hoping for the D-Jack Boom game in this one, especially with the injuries to the other positions or to the other options at the wide receiver position as well. So, I think this game has potential to be a shootout with, how the defenses have looked thus far. And you just got to, protect the ball and move it down the field, execute, and score some points. So hopefully we can get that out of this matchup.
And then the only other position would be the tight ends. The Bengals did lose C.J. Uzomah last week, and then Drew Sample kind of stepped in, and he was peppered with 9 targets, and I think he caught 7 of them. He is definitely he's a play to look out for. He could be more of a DFS play this week if you don't feel comfortable throwing him into your lineup. He's one of the guys that I have on my bench where I have Darren Waller. I also have Hunter Henry, so I might lean Hunter Henry's way if Waller can't go, but I did pick up Sample just as a just in case and see how ballsy I get. So I'm kind of on the fence with him. Again, he's just got to prove a little bit more. And then on the Eagles side, I'm playing both Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. With me not trusting any of the wide receivers there, Carson Wentz does have to throw the ball to somebody. So it's going to be one of those two or both of those tight ends. I have no problem playing either of those tight ends. I have no problem playing another tight end like a Darren Waller and flexing one of those tight ends. I mean, if I could get either one of them into my lineup, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Sample's production was, attributed to Joe Burrow. I feel like, he's still, like I said, he's still finding his groove, and we always talk about the safety blankets, your tight end. So if he can start pushing the ball down the field, I feel like, maybe these targets to the tight end go away a little bit. But Drew Sample and C.J. Uzomah, these aren't a high level, tight ends. So this is just a classic case of the rookie, using his security blanket, and if it does kind of blossom that Burrow does like to target the tight end, then I think Cincinnati needs to get a really good tight end in here to really be productive for him. But as far as this week, I expect Sample to really have a solid game for you. I mean, he had 7 receptions for like 45 yards or something like that. And so he's not getting a lot of the yards per catch. And, like I said at the top here, that's what Burrow has been doing in the past couple of weeks. So, hopefully as the games go on, they can start opening up this offense.
And just a side note, Joe Burrow's offense at LSU was able to support one running back, 2 wide receivers, and 2 tight ends. Now he threw for 60 touchdowns, and in college is a lot different than the pros. But he was able to he liked looking the tight end way, so that could be something where if you're thinking about Sample. Going back to Joe Burrow's college days, he did like his tight ends. Thad Moss was one of them. Had excellent season with LSU, so definitely keep that in the back of your mind. Our next game we got here is the San Francisco 49 hospital beds going up against the New York Giants. We have a bunch of injuries here for San Francisco. I guess the plus side of it is they already are listed out, so it's not like you're waiting for game time decision here. Raheem Mostert, Jimmy Garoppolo, George Kittle, Tevin Coleman, a couple of guys on the defensive side of the ball, all out. On the New York Giants, we obviously know that Saquon Barkley is out for the season. He's not even listed on the injury report because he is done for the season. But that's about it. Sterling Shepard as well. He's going to be out. But other than that, they don't really have any. They don't have any offensive players that are really questionable or game time decisions. They're all either you already know that they're out already, or they're playing. So I guess if there's a silver lining to this injury report, you kind of already had a heads up as early as yesterday on what's going on with these guys, and you could have made your adjustments then. But into the quarterbacks, it looks like it's going to be Nick Mullins up against Daniel Jones. I've said it all off season long. I really didn't like Daniel Jones' start to the season. even with these defensive players all being out, and Nick Bosa was another one I didn't even mention because he's on IR, so he's not even listed on the game day report. We already know that he's done, but it's I mean, Daniel Jones is a little bit better for me now. You can't really anticipate injuries when you are making your projections in the offseason. He started out with Pittsburgh and then went to forgot who he had last week, but and then now the 49ers. So it's like wow, back to back to back tough defense matches, and then there's still even more after this. But with all these injuries now, I mean, I think Daniel Jones is a better play now. I don't know if San Francisco is really going to be able to roll the Giants like we would have thought if everybody was coming in fully healthy. They definitely don't look like the team that was just in the Super Bowl a few months ago. Um, I mean, and now they're sitting at the bottom of that division at 1-1 because the other three teams in that division are undefeated. So it's like I'm probably a little bit more comfortable playing Daniel Jones than I would have been. Nick Mullins, I'm probably avoiding. I don't even think I had him ranked, but yeah, I mean, it's not gonna be a pretty game. I think it's gonna be a really ugly game.
Yeah, even with all the injuries, the Niners are still favored by 3.5 points in this one. So that's a little bit intriguing considering they're basically all of their offense is gone with Kittle and no Debo and Mostert, Coleman both being out, and as well as Garoppolo. So this will be a weird game. We might see a really high scoring affair, or we might see a back and forth trugging through the mud type of matchup. But Daniel Jones, he played the Bears last week, so another one of those good defenses. I thought he played pretty well in the opener against Pittsburgh. There was two really good defensive plays that made made those interceptions, but otherwise he was 280 yards and 2 touchdowns. So hopefully Daniel Jones can continue to work through this tough schedule here, and with Bosa being out and with Sherman also injured, I feel like maybe this is a matchup where he can kind of go out and produce more than what he would have if those guys were in there. So it should be an interesting week. I'm still a big fan of Jones. I'd be willing to roll him out there in like super flex leagues that I had. Probably normal quarterback leagues like one QB. He probably is towards the bottom of starting this week. You probably have at least 10 or 12 other options that you'd put in front of him. But for Superflex, I'd be fine putting Jones out there. I don't think anybody's really playing Nick Mullins, maybe DFS-wise, just to go for the cheap guy. But, it should be a decent matchup in this game.
All right, the running back situation here, we got Jerick McKinnon, probably going to be handling a bulk of the load for the San Francisco 49ers. He was one of the hot waiver wire pickups this past week. I think you could roll him out there against the Giants defense. From the New York Giants side, you got, well, like you said, Saquon Barkley's out. They did sign Devonta Freeman, but I don't know if he's going to be ready this week. I haven't heard anything. Behind him, you got Dion Lewis, who he could be a good spot start this week. I don't think he could be. I don't think he's going to be terrible. And maybe they bring up Wayne Gallman. I know he was scratched last week, but that was with the anticipation that Saquon Barkley was going to be there. But I don't know. I mean, I would lean towards McKinnon's way out of these guys if I had him. If I was one of the guys that spent a lot of fab on him, I would play him. I'm probably holding off a week for Freeman. I'm not starting him yet. And then Dion Lewis, he's more of a desperation play, I would say, for me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I feel like if you picked up Freeman off of like waivers or on with your fab budget, this is a great matchup to roll him out there. I mean, Benny Snell came in relief of Connor in the first week and had over 100 yards, and David Montgomery had a couple receptions, 82 yards on the ground, and got into the end zone through the air. So this is a team so far, the Giants defense, that has allowed a little bit of a little bit more points to the running back. So I'd be definitely willing to put McKinnon into my lineup in this game. As far as the Giants side, I don't think I don't have confidence playing Freeman yet. I want to see him get kind of used to this team. Who knows what kind of shape he's in? You would expect a professional athlete to be in shape in case their time comes, like Freeman, has for this week. But still, without practicing with the team, without getting into football shape like these other guys have had 2 weeks to do. So I don't want to put Freeman out there in my lineup this week. Hopefully if his, as the weeks go on, if his role kind of increases, he could become a safer start, later towards the middle of the year. But not for this week. Even with the Niners defense losing a couple of pieces, I wouldn't put Freeman out there yet.
All right, and then your wide receivers that you got in this game, it's pretty ugly. From the Giants side, you got Golden Tate is back. He was back. Was he back last week? I don't remember.
Yes.
And then you got Darius Slayton. I mean, Darius Slayton has all the opportunity in the world to be the best wide receiver in this entire game. On the 49ers side, I mean, Mohamed Sanu might get a chance there. I know he wasn't. He was just signed before last week's game, so he had to get a little bit of time in with the team. I think he might be okay. But I mean, I'm not really like the only guy out of everybody in this game, and I guess we'll go into tight ends included. Darius Slayton. I might give Evan Ingram a chance, but again, tight end is pretty deep, and then Jordan Reed, he had a nice game last week on the same turf too against the Jets, 2 touchdowns last week. So, those are the only 3 pass catching options that I would start in this game. Evan Ingram, I'm kind of on the fence about. Jordan Reed, I mean, I would have had to pick him up like 2 weeks ago in order to get him because he was a hot commodity then, and especially with George Kittle out, he's going to be a highly targeted player, but. Darius Slayton is my most comfortable wide receiver. Maybe throw him into the wide receiver 2, even flex range if you have him. Everybody else I'm kind of avoiding in this game.
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky. I was talking about yesterday in our chat. I'm kind of between Golden Tate and KJ Hamler, 2 guys that are gonna hopefully get a little bit more opportunity with the injuries to their team, with Shepard being out for Tate and then for Sutton being out for Hamler. So I really think Tate could produce a really solid game in this matchup. He caught all of his targets last week. He had 5 targets, 5 receptions for somewhere in the 40-yard range. No, I'm sorry, a little bit higher than that, about 60 yards or so. So I think he can come out. He's a kind of a low-end candidate to get a touchdown here. So if he's able to produce a touchdown, I think that's a really safe game on top of the normal receptions, safe receptions that Tate gets. For the Niners, Slayton as well. I feel like he's a good boom player. He came out and caught a long touchdown in the first week, and I was kind of hoping for that last week, but it didn't come to fruition. But hopefully this game he should be able to exploit a beat up secondary a little bit, and hopefully Jones has some time to throw the ball with Bosa being out, as well as Solomon Thomas being out or being hurt. And for the Niners, I think Jordan Reed's a safe play, and I already touched on McKinnon. I think those are the only 2 options that I'm comfortable going with for the Niners side, and they cannot wait for next week. Hopefully they get Kittle back. Debo should be able to come back for this team, and then maybe the Coleman and Mostert. We'll see how the running game kind of works out for them. But the Niners are kind of limping into this matchup, hoping to get a win against a favorable team that they should be able to beat on normal occasions. But like I said, this game could go anywhere.
All right, our next matchup that we have is the Tennessee Titans up against the Minnesota Vikings. The biggest injury, really, on both sides of the ball here is A.J. Brown, or both sides of both teams here is A.J. Brown for the Tennessee Titans. He is out. Jonnu Smith, it was a full participation in practice, so he will be back tomorrow. Other than that, really nobody else for Tennessee, and nobody really for Minnesota. So aside from A.J. Brown, should be a fully healthy fantasy game. There still are some second tier players and some defensive players that are going to be might be missing some time. But AJ Brown is really the only fantasy relevant player in this game. The quarterback battle, you got Kirk Cousins up against Ryan Tannehill. Tannehill, I think, can have a huge game. I think that even with A.J. Brown out, I think that he has a chance to kind of just. I think he has a chance to be a quarterback one this week. And I mean, not saying that he hasn't been in the past, because he has been, especially since coming over to the Titans and starting for the Titans. He's been a really good quarterback for them, but he has a chance to get up in there, maybe even to the top 5, top 6 for quarterbacks this week. Be a really good. He could be a week winner for you this week, because that Minnesota defense is not what we're used to. It's not what he used to be. Kirk Cousins, we have him pretty low. I think overall, as a consensus, we have him at quarterback 29. Might even be able to jump him up to quarterback 28, because this was before we knew the Garoppolo news. I would assume that we're putting Cousins below Mullins or above Mullins, so we'll give Cousins the benefit of the doubt and move him up one spot. But still, that's not in starter range. I'm not playing him. I'm comfortably playing Ryan Tannehill. We have him at quarterback 12, which is a quarterback 1 for us. And I'd have no problem playing Tannehill with or without A.J. Brown.
Yeah, it's crazy. Cousins has just been off to a pretty bad start this season. And, I was kind of sitting here thinking I might be willing to play Mullins over him just because of how bad he's looked, until Cousins is able to get a little bit more consistency and higher performances. But, I mean, for Tannehill, without A.J. Brown, hopefully he'll still be able to exploit this good matchup with the Vikings defense. But I'm not touching Cousins at all.
And then the running backs, just like we were talking about Miles Sanders potentially being an RB1 or being the RB1 this week against Cincinnati, Derrick Henry has an equal opportunity to be the RB1 against Minnesota. I mean, you're putting him in your lineup and you're having a big smile on your face if you got him. Dalvin Cook on the other side, I mean, you're keeping him in your lineup a little less. I don't even want to use the word comfortable, because you're not taking him out. I mean, there's no way you're taking him out of your lineup. It's just Tennessee is a tough defense, tight defense, so they are. I'd be a little bit more worried with Dalvin Cook, but I'm still playing him comfortably. I have no problem with it. Not even considering benching him. But Derrick Henry is going to be. He could, like I said, he could end up as the RB1 this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd be a really big smile on your face if he goes in there and has a typical Derrick Henry day, and that's kind of what we've been waiting for. He had over 100 yards in the first game, but it took him 31 carries to get there. He did catch a couple passes, so maybe he can get that usage a little bit, but only 84 yards on the ground last week against the Jaguars. So Derrick Henry has so far not given you what you hope to get, but hopefully he can take advantage of this matchup and produce one of those classic Henry games that we have seen over the years. And I'm definitely rooting for it. He was my guy going into the year. I took him over Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and for the first week at least, Edwards-Helaire looked really sharp and came out and had a touchdown, a great day. And then, Henry was effective later in the game in the first week. Like I said, over 100 yards, but, you weren't super thrilled with the outcome, only about 14 points or so. Same thing with last week, only about 9 points with his, rushing yards. So hopefully Derrick Henry comes out, has one of those, classic King Henry type games and gets you a really high performance, and then you can, go smiling into work on Monday morning thinking that you won your matchup. But, Dalvin Cook, like you said, you're putting him in there. You're not taking him out for anything, and hopefully he gets, his looks and receptions as well, and can produce a safe output for you.
All right, and then the wide receivers already touched on a little bit with them. Well, only really with A.J. Brown, but Corey Davis gets a boost here on the On the Minnesota side, Adam Thielen, I think he's a comfortable, safe play. He's been all season. I'm still waiting on that Justin Jefferson breakout. I don't know if it's going to come this week or not, but not a lot of like pass catching options really for either team. I mean, you have Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith and Adam Thielen, and I'm fine playing all of them, but this could be one of those ground and pound games, one of those games where there's just a lot of rushing back and forth, which I'd be totally fine with. I'm not against that, but just dipping into the tight ends as well. Jonnu Smith I think he's a must start. I think he could be a tight end one this week. We have him ranked in the tight end one range. Let me just double check where we got him. We actually have him at 10, so as tight end 10, so tight end one for overall. On the Vikings side, it's been a little bit disappointing between their tight ends. I mean, Kyle Rudolph he's still available in a lot of leagues, and he should be. He really hasn't been getting anything done. Irv Smith was supposed to be a breakout candidate. He really hasn't. He's been a little bit disappointing. He hasn't been what we thought he could be so far this year, but that kind of coincides with Kirk Cousins struggling and not doing what we thought Kirk Cousins could do. But it's the pass catchers, like I said, Corey Davis, Jonnu Smith, and Adam Thielen, and I think that's about it for me.
Yeah, I mean, if you have Thielen, you almost have to put him out there. You're probably talking about some lower options that you're kind of debating whether to start over Thielen or not, I'm looking at the line here. It's a little bit weird that this is a 49.5 point over under. That's pretty high to me for a game that could be relied heavily on the running backs, but like I said with Thielen, you need more consistency from Cousins to be able to, have full confidence playing Thielen. You're rolling him out there regardless, hoping that he has a good game, even if Cousins doesn't. On the Titans side, Corey Davis is a safe play, I think. Maybe a little bit in deeper leagues, you can put him out there, maybe not in traditional two receiver and the flex play leagues, but Admin Balake, one of his my guys in this game is Humphreys, so I think Humphreys is a safe start in this one. Can work over the middle of the field and get some receptions and maybe catch another touchdown in this game, but moving on to the tight ends, Jonnu Smith also a safe play, as you mentioned, and hoping for a second option to kind of produce themselves for Cousins there in the passing attack, whether it be Justin Jefferson or Irv Smith that we've been kind of hoping for. So until that happens, I don't think you can have confidence playing either of those until they. Like I said, until they can, kind of produce some consistency and be, a little bit more involved.
All right, and then the next game we got here on the list is the Houston Texans up against your Pittsburgh Steelers. It's going to be an ugly game for Houston, I think. This was one of my question marks at the beginning of the show when we're talking about my quarterback Watson. I'm kind of on the fence. I mean, who in their right mind considers benching Watson for Mitch Trubisky, and the answer is me. I'm thinking about doing it. But the injuries in this game, not too much on the Houston side. I mean, Duke Johnson is questionable. He was limited with an ankle injury. Randall Cobb did not participate. Brandon Cooks was a full participant. J.J. Watt did not participate. I'm not sure what's going on there. But that's it for Houston. And on the Pittsburgh side, everybody that they had listed was a full participant. So just going down the list, that includes Deontay Johnson, Ben Roethlisberger, Juju Smith-Schuster, and then a few guys on the defensive side of the ball, and their big center, Marcus Pouncey, and David DeCastro too. So it looks like they're going in pretty fully healthy, aside from whoever's on the long-term IR. But for the most part, it looks like it's going to be a Pittsburgh Steelers type of game. The quarterback side, as you already know my opinions on Deshaun Watson, I'm not he opened up with three really tough games going against the Super Bowl champs on the Thursday night to open the season, and then last week going to play Baltimore, who had a tough defense and just can't you can't get behind against those guys, and then now he goes into Pittsburgh too, where it's tough to play for anybody, but having the defense that they have, a top three defense, it's not going to be fun for him. Definitely could tell that he misses DeAndre Hopkins, even though Will Fuller had that nice game in week one. Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks and Randall Cobb, and even you mix them all three together, you still don't get DeAndre Hopkins out of that. You gotta, it's not looking good. I mean, there's gonna be more often than not, I'm gonna be playing Deshaun Watson, but tomorrow might not be one of those games. Ben Roethlisberger on the other side, I think we had him ranked in the top. Yeah, we got him ranked in the top 12. I think he was at number 12 or 11 for us. He's QB 11, so a QB1. This Houston Texans defense isn't that great. He's got his weapons all healthy, should be good to go. I'm fully comfortable playing him if I have him. I know he's had a couple good games so far, so he was swooped up. He wasn't really like a hot waiver wire pickup, but if people saw him floating around in their free agency, people swooped him up. So it's not like he's readily available, but he is a guy that if you could grab him and you have some question marks at quarterback, I think Big Ben's a good play here.
Yeah, I mean, talking about my Steelers here, I have some safe confidence, I guess is the way to put it. I don't want to overhype them too much and say this defense is great because I just don't want to jinx them. But this is a tough matchup for Watson. Yeah, I wonder if it could just be one of those trap games that he could come out and we may be projecting him to be kind of down a little bit, and then he just comes out and is on fire. So I could definitely see that outcome happening. As far as for Ben, I think he's a nice play. Like I said, it'd be a tough one to pick which quarterback you want in this game, either Watson or Ben. I think Ben a little bit more safer, but like I said, Watson probably offers the rushing ability and offers the better deep threat ability to just kind of open it up a little bit. So a tough matchup for Watson. Like you had touched on, he gets the Super Bowl champions first, and then he gets the great Baltimore defense first, and then he gets the great Pittsburgh defense next. So yeah, definitely he probably angered the schedule makers somehow, but for like I said, for fantasy, I think unless you have better options, I think most people are still sticking with Watson. Hopefully, hoping that he can put on a nice day for you. And with Ben, I think he's a safe guy. He had 300 yards and I think he had 3 touchdowns last week against Denver. So safe option there for Ben Roethlisberger.
All right. The running back situation here, David Johnson, I think he's a guy that I might be sitting this week. Running backs haven't really been able to do well against Pittsburgh this year so far. Week 1, Saquon Barkley was just shut down. The only reason he had any kind of pulse was in the passing game. Last week against Denver, Melvin Gordon got into the end zone, but even he was kind of shut down for the most part. He did get a little bit. He got more yards than what Barkley did, and he looked a little bit better. But again, I mean, if you're comparing David Johnson to Melvin Gordon, I think you're taking Melvin Gordon 9 times out of 10. David Johnson, he's going to have some good games. He's going to have some plus matchups, but I'm not against sitting him this week. I didn't draft him as a running back 1 or 2, so that's where I'm more comfortable doing it. I still have other guys that I could play instead of him. On the Pittsburgh side, James Conner had a big week last week. I'm playing him this week. I have him in my McCaffrey league, so I kind of have to play him. But coming off the game that he had last week, I am a little bit more comfortable as opposed to if he were to leave that game with an injury. Benny Snell kind of just burned a lot of people last week. I think it's of the running backs in this game, I think James Conner is the only one that I'm really comfortable throwing in there, and I would put him in there as an RB2, even borderline RB1, depending on how my roster looks like right now.
Yeah, I mean, David Johnson's a tough call. he was kind of, he looked efficient in the first game, but they had to get away from the running, the rushing a little bit because they were down against the Chiefs, and he was not as efficient in the second game. He had about half as many, rushing yards. Hopefully, he can be a little bit involved in the passing game to kind of save your day. But again, this is a tough defense. They did shut down Barkley. Gordon had a solid day. He was able to get about 70 yards on the ground and then got a reception touchdown, as you mentioned. So I don't know if they're going to be able to completely shut David Johnson down. It's just I feel like that was the game plan to shut Barkley down, and they did that. They left their secondary a little bit exposed to be able to limit the impact that Barkley would have had. And then they kind of went back to a more traditional defensive plan against the Broncos, and so that allowed Gordon to get a little bit more work than what Barkley was able to do. But for Connor, if he's out there and he's healthy, he's going to be the main guy. I mean, we kind of beating the drum with that all off season. As long as Connor's out there and healthy, he's a solid option for you. And I think it's no different this week against the Texans defense. They allowed Clyde to have a really good opening game. So if you got James Conner, you're hoping that this game kind of goes into kind of like the Browns Bengals game last week, where the Steelers are going to be able to run out the clock late and get some Conner get some touches later in the game and maybe get a touchdown for you to get a solid fantasy day.
All right, the wide receivers in this game on Houston's side, I do like Fuller and I do like Cooks. I can't play both of them. I would probably just throw one of them into the flex. Not one of them really sticks out higher than the other one. Fuller was a little bit banged up last week. Cooks is he is their deeper big play threat. I think Fuller has the opportunity for more. Just more volume. If as long as he stays healthy all game, I mean that's the biggest thing. But both of them are more just flex options, and I can only play one of them. On the Steelers side, Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, I'm fine playing both as wide receiver twos, potentially even wide receiver ones. I forgot where we had them both ranked. Let me just go double check that. Juju was a wide receiver 1 at 11, and then Deontay Johnson was a wide receiver 2 at 22. So both are solid options. Fine playing either. Fine playing both. Fine playing either in DFS as well. And then one DFS play that I wanted to mention, if you wanted to throw him out there, was Chase Claypool. I'll let you talk about him a little bit, but I wouldn't start him in a redraft or a full season long league. But I might play him in a DFS game just to see if he has a nice boom game, touchdown or two, and a few catches. But that's it for the wide receivers for this game. I might as well just jump into the tight ends too, because they're not too many there. But probably not playing either from the Titan or the Texans, and then the Steelers. I think Eric Ebron. People were kind of burned on him last week, but I think he could have a bounce back game this week. I think he could be a solid option here for Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, Ben usually likes to target the tight end. We've seen that a lot of the times with Heath Miller and McDonald had a couple of games in the past couple of seasons. But I wanted to bring up Claypool as well. I echo those thoughts. He could be a solid DFS play. You just kind of throw in like a flex spot or your last receiver spot, and just hopefully that he hits again. You could be taking a 0. Obviously, but you do have the good opportunity that he's gonna get a couple of deep shots and throughout the game. So he pulled in a really good one against the Broncos last week along the left sideline there and took it to the end zone. So that was a nice thing to see as a Steeler fan. Just another option that we have out there to attack defenses with. Juju and Deontay, I think they're both safe plays. They're going to be the more consistent guys throughout the offense for each week. And as far as Ebron goes, I think you could find better options, but I think you could also find worse options. So he could be a safe guy, get a couple of receptions, and maybe have some red zone presence in this game as well. For the Texans, I'd lean to Fuller. I think if I had to pick between the two of them, between Cooks and Fuller, I'd be much more comfortable playing Fuller. Cooks also, like you said, a little bit more of the deep threat. He can be a safe play, but I think you're hoping that he catches, maybe a 30, 40-yard pass or maybe a long touchdown or something like that to really have a good fantasy day.
All right. That is it for the 1 o'clock games. We're going to probably split this episode up into 2 episodes and then get back with the 4 o'clock games and then in the Sunday night game, and then have a separate episode for the Monday night game. So we're going to cut it here. We'll come back with the 4 o'clock games. And then, so if you haven't heard any of your games, or if you're waiting on some injuries, you haven't heard of them, then check the next episode. But that is it for right now, and we'll see you guys in a little bit.